I'm raking leaves and singing in my off-key voice a mangled version of Madonna's Like a Virgin, a song I thought I hated. That's how it goes when your head and your heart are in different time zones. You often don't find out until tomorrow what you felt today. I know I do not understand the principles of leaf removal. I pile them up in glowing heaps of cadmium and orange, but I identify so much more with the entropic gusts of wind that knock them all apart. Is it natural to be scattered? When I look into the sky, I am often dreaming of a television program I saw some months ago. When I walk into a dinner party, I am thinking of the book I mean to read when I get home. You might say my here is disconnected from my now. So I'm never entirely anywhere or anyone. But I won't speak cruelly of myself. This dividedness is just what makes our species great. Possible for Darwin to figure out his theory of selection while playing five-card stud, for Surgeon Keats to find a perfect rhyme with wrist deep in disorder of an open abdomen. For example, it is autumn here. The defoliated trees look frightened at the edge of town, as if the train they missed had taken all of their clothes, the whole world in unison, turning towards a zone of nakedness and cold. But me, I have this strange conviction that I'm about to be born. That was Tony Hoagland. Welcome to the Inspired Word Cafe. Woo! Oh no, you guys are too please. Okay, so we have a great show tonight. We have a local poet, but before we get to that, I'm gonna turn to one of our most famous audience members. Actually, we've had loads of fan mail. We don't know where to put it anymore. There's all these calls and letters that the taxpayers no doubt are paying for. Ricky, you're local, so this is Ricky.
Hi.
She is our resident crocheter. Do you want to talk maybe a little bit about your craft for us?
Okay, yes. It's crocheting, not knitting.
It's not
to be confused. Knitting is much more complicated and much harder to do, which is why I don't do it.
Ricky, do you mind standing up for us?
Gosh, I guess.
Yeah. Knitting, not crochet.
Other way around, friend.
Crocheting, not knitting.
Yes, crocheting, not knitting.
People at home.
And this particular thing that I've been working on throughout this season is supposed to be a fundraising project for IWC, actually.
Awesome.
So the black and white is IWC logo, and the rainbow is for all of the artists and the collective and the personalities that sort of make up that make the show go. So yeah, the idea is just to do as much as I can while I'm at shows and slams and the open mic slash open slam nights. And so not an incredible amount gets done, but I'm loving it. I think it's looking great, and it's going to be like a lap rug. Let's call it a lap rug.
A lap rug. The IWC lap rug. That's got a nice ring to it, huh?
It'll keep you warm while you're watching the show.
Yeah, what I like about crocheting is you can stick your toes through it.
Yeah.
It's a big draw for me. All right, thanks, Ricky.
Thank you.
All right, so let's put our hands together on a big IWC welcome for Luke Kernan.
All right, the first poem that I'm going to do is about a woman burying her sister in the desert in Death Valley. Dark Phoenix. We walked together past the amber-lit porches of two colonial houses. Those decadent facades, fiery antagonists to the shattered truth. Nothing could shelter the bitterness when it comes, and it always comes. I never thought to leave. Your face, tilted, spoke in monosyllabic terrors, as if your skin wanted to say, half porcelain, half livid, what possibilities dashed, as it mortified, tears the spirit of onlookers, feeble to its numb dissonance. A rusty blade stirs boiling hemlock. Your sister's name, Jezebel, O Jezebel of the winter day. A crash of fists jars the paint-chipped paint chip knocker. We wait huddled together as cast iron lions jolt, beckon us past the doorway we enter. No tongues could describe the bounty, the burden of our trembling recognition. Your sister's fuchsia dress, the sight of it. At smoldering rest, the Sacramento sun blisters, abrades decency. A skylight window, damned in silence, motionless, driveled, an aftermath. Rays falling upon floorboards, our crept hearts too damaged to speak in the house's dying sanctum as locusts feast on nightshades. We watch Madagascar sunset moths emerge, crack their cocoons, a timbrous bleed of purple, beats, breeze, and spills into your sparrow-speared visage. That last light etches the hospice, and our faults ruined by love amidst starry conservatories and that canopy of junipers, the one your sister tended to, little ghost left blueberry-mouthed, stained in agony beset. We go into the desert, its medicine waiting for us, toy box to spare, and wicker men. The hot sand seething, your brilliance black. The droplets of your path entomb my rapturous follow. Only wanderlust to quench these lips dry of hope, and the moony taste of cacti. Midday breaks in Death Valley as we find the Undertaker's chapel, and my necromat's click and shudder captures your echoed heartache. You, too broken for all the wolfish smiles. That somber saunter leaves you knee-collapsed, destitute by heaven's flurry, too weak to intervene. Then your tin ivory compass plummets by hands riddled carrying ash. No longer could you bear to clasp those joy-heavy memories, but you still held on, heart to heart. Took to your sister's urn to whisper weep your undoing. I grasp your palm, have watched for years as your color has faded into others. Black harbinger, I see your beauty, held magnificent in the wisdom of scars. Speechless to your true mastery, charcoal plumages refract inner light, that renaissance of divine resonance. You close the gap, swear to bathe your daughter in Jezebel's remembrance. Alas, I gaze, powerless, as you ignite, self-immolate, ember-filled, weighted to the ground. You are the burning midnight, that which reminds the ethereal of itself. We camp near that crater, grievous of your imprint. Smudge the vicinity of our transgression as I watch California wildflowers bloom in your wake, kissed by your compassion. The road trip home brings us closer. Suspended by that tear, a microcosm of all those Okanagan lakes and mountains made wondrous, lively streaming into symmetrical reflections, bursting at the seams of your womanhood and the need to create. O love-doused teacher, dark phoenix of my heart, burn me. All right. Sketches of Adnan Selimovich, Heteroglyphic Hearts. Few impressions, if clasped briefly, ever last. Adnan's smile clings to me, infectious amid youthful chatter. His exuberance meddlesome, York's crisp cutting winds howl, The fall brings me back momentarily. After counsel, we converse with idle intent. The day dips pins itself in neurosis, as passengers of time linger, like death reborn, its palimpsest, once beautiful wilts. Self-abrasive salts, setting fire upon the heart less lived, scraping away the memory, sun-bleached catatonia, crystallizing its flight, our tapestry sacred, fade fast, scattered as dandelions. 1992, shells plummet, devils of brimstone, engines menacing, batter storms, black, cruel, indiscriminate, child brass artillery rains upon Sarajevo amid the clutter. The weightiness of the trigger, clutched, stalls him, reflex over eyes, warm blood spilt, with daft cold precision. Recoiling from his handiwork, the sniper benumbs himself to all those trembling faces, white dots, elegies entombed. We rest sitting on the steps outside Vari Hall. In the courtyard, Adnan lights a cigarette, its smoke billowing, his spirit mystified, jubilant. As he talks of simple things, a benevolence, a petition for food, to feed his fellow graduate students, simple love, torn, parched of speech. Days later, I spot him, half-haggard in a tumultuous sea of students, spent. Adnan, where are you going? Pittsburgh. His dream-fired hopes on his mind, hunting down future conferences, and perhaps the thrill of a bitter Pittsburgh game, ice and all. By November, I saw less and less of him. Nights grew, darkness spoke. I once told him, insomnia-stricken, heartbroken, haunted by a grief for the living, that the TCC buses sounded like tanks patrolling the streets. He looked at me pensively, told me to download the audio file. Listen to the thundering power of its track, crush brick and bone. There was something about him. He was downed, but never quite forgone, a hurricane within him, forging Vittori's night into a glassy spear of confidence. I will never forget that one evening we spent with another international, bearing our histories at a diner. He opened up, talked of his absent mother and a man who adopted him, showed him kindness and the world's possibilities. He had a hard story like Yasmina Jazevic's. Her harrowing account that moved my classmates to weep for days in private awe of Visegrad, where the river runs salt, runs sweet, a soul-curdling memoir, one that cries of blood and heroism burnt by an impossible love. The Bosnian War was still within him, embodied, ensnared like the impaled man on the banks of the Drina, that nightmare life and death, sustaining his wounds, keeping pain omnipresent. Adnan's lip spoke the secret language of trauma. His nights were invaded by the humming of helicopters and the stark beating of patrol lights. That dizziness, nauseating, the curvy, wiry coat-hanger blades of this Boeing Apache and its Hellfire missiles, mangling his figure, lean and heavy with thoughts of committing himself. That revolving motion, still fresh, set thick upon the door's grime, each window's reflection, set black in our eyes then, contorts his face, already bare with a milieu of hopelessness. A riven ache, resigned to quit this unholy aperture, and the sirens of Mount Sinai Hospital calling our Adnan home. The hangman's noose, a note-taker's needle. Quoting Homer, he shall suffer whatever fate the dread spinner spun with a thread for him at birth. Stigma, tiny big bangs, the shrapnel of language, crude, caustic, yet applied surgical. The words tumbling as gravel down my throat, sitting sharp in the gut. Non-specified psychosis, bipolar. The capital thought, days of blistering depression, the unquiet mind, weighted by a single stone. Alejandro's madness my own, the price of which is valued heft, suffocates, cracks my lungs. Too weak from the emptiness, the air of your BS, collapsed on broken promises. The pressure imprisoning as a gasp for oxygen, and the incurable need for humanity unconsoled, embittered, its warmth locked away in an isolation death chamber. Room 268, sterile, windowless, and from here the universe's heat death palpable. Abashed, breath wallowed, I witnessed spiraling lymph flakes held in pirouette. The barometers of time slowly slip stagnant, antagonized. The insomnia tightens by locked jaw, stiff muscles, and daggered teeth, drops of Haldol. Sleep gives to asphyxiation and aspirations. The delirium sets in, release nips at the livid tongue, as I catalog the contents of the stars one by one on the walls. My father's rusty chisel, lucid raindrops streaming down the glass, dark chocolate on Sundays, sounds of her voice mixed into my writing, that bittersweet foliage, the spine of remembrance as fingernails piercing into concrete panels, dividends etched by sheer will as I recounted the bare thought of kissing her under cold porches, every half letter of being recoiled in the colliding of lips, those whispers. All of them deftly keen details, swarming inside of me, digging into my experience. These cartographies of consciousness, projected as living fire, the Proustian wit of my collective history, everything as it sings and cinders, leads me to the memory ways of the soul. I remember why you put me here. I am the abomination of reason, the heart that will not die. I tighten the noose with the needle, surrender to the psychosis, feed its thread to see your worlds cripple at the birth of these lines. Are we doing 5 minutes? Lesser Yuri. Soft furrows of frost, moistures collecting, as spades of water split heaven's bend. Icy tapestries gut the heart of hubris cold. That one droplet wrinkles across the window pane, its triumph death-knelled in her brown irises. A 13-watt light bulb dims, tells of her silhouette. She reimagines how her skin took to the needle. Corvus descend upon her right arm, a murder, inking her a one-winged angel, blaze brazen. White smoke kisses her lips. A lingering cigarette warms the cluttered Berlin apartment. A disarray of parted books and manic notes litters her friend's catacomb of literature. She waits for Lily's return, off on errands, yet stands radiant, mulling over the exhibit prints. Lily has been writing for a Lesser Yuri art show. Trembling, the shadow spills into her eyes, and a spell of paint burns away her senses. The wicked rush of spiriting into his work, evening's light splashes golden phantoms that spear the crippling crux of ivory black. A sauntering melancholy amid the streets sends her abysmal, wet-toed for rainy haven. Archways and an artist's open house sign point her towards refuge. Its lettering melts. She stares at her symbols, chic-sleeved faces and star figures counseling her forward. Genius, fed by flames, starved, unfurling alabaster skin, languid fire and lush breasts lie sideways, spirited on the blood-red velvet. He leans away from his nimble easel. Close your bodily eyes shut, so that you may see this picture first with the spiritual eye awake. His words butterfly into her being, a flight of phrases shivers down her spine. She returns, Lily never looked so lovely, rain clasp in the budding luminescence of midnight stars.
All right, we're back here with Luke Kernan. Thanks, Luke, for being on the show tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for your reading. So now that we got crocheting out of the way, that was super important. We got some poems. Now I'm going to interview you in these really just very comfortable chairs.
Very comfortable.
They make my thighs look huge from my view. I don't know how they look out there for you viewers, but
yeah, they
at least double, I think, for me, which is a fun experience. So now I guess we'll get down to writing. So Luke, super simple, and it's actually something I've never asked you in our conversations, is how did you get started writing?
I think I started writing in high school. There was one English teacher, Mr. Hughes and Kamloops, that helped me a lot. But yeah, basically just the experience and rewriting that one poem about the girl you liked in high school that you just kept on rewriting. That kind of got me into writing and kind of spiraled from there.
You learned about editing that early. That's
I did constant revisions. I don't know if it made it better in the end, but it was good around midway editing, and then after 2 minute edits, I couldn't look at it anymore.
I was the opposite. When I was younger, when I would write, I would just write one draft and go, "This is perfect," and then I don't need to move a word, and then it maybe wasn't perfect. So
I also my writing was very metaphysical to begin with. I was comparing the despair of love to asymptotes, and how you're always going closer but never hitting.
Yeah, I totally was doing that in high school too. So I knew what metaphysics is then. So okay, Luke.
Yeah.
How about what's your favorite book? Or I know that's sometimes hard to pinpoint, but if you can't figure it out, maybe what are you reading right now, or what's sort of your current favorite?
Those are always hard to kind of pinpoint. But one of my favorite reading experiences was just reading the Epic of Gilgamesh on my parents' couch, and just reading the entire thing, just sitting there listening to music and just really getting into it, and especially how the fragments in the Epic of Gilgamesh work, so having my imagination constantly kicking in to fill the blanks. Just I know that was one of my most enjoyable reading experience. But one of the most influential books maybe was Dante's La Vita Nova, that small book of poetry that he wrote.
Okay, I don't know that one.
It's more focused on his love for Beatrice. But it's pretty it kind of shifts between prose and poetry, so it kind of gives you a small narrative. But I don't know, I'm always wanting to read more. So but those are more of the classical stuff that have kind of influenced.
Awesome. Do you read much contemporary stuff?
Not as much, but I'm definitely getting into it more. I think I'm just focusing on writing, but the act of writing. But I'm definitely wanting to get more into to the contemporary writing scene, or just what people are doing at shows and that practice. I know I want to read more contemporary writing, but I do have more of a background in traditional literature, British literature, or
right.
Or even comparative literature through anthropological readings or whatever.
Right. On that note, I was wondering if you maybe wanted to talk a little bit about your upcoming PhD work. I just thought it'd be super interesting for folks back home in terms of kind of hearing how art or the production of art can have maybe some more, for lack of a better word, practical use, or less finger painty. How's that?
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah. So for my PhD, which I'm going to be doing in Victoria at UVic, I'm doing a PhD in anthropology, but looking at psychosis narratives. So people's like break from normative consciousness. So usually like a break from reality, and then doing like the fieldwork to collect those stories, so those lived experiences, and then translating those experiences into comics and poetry to explain like what is it like to experience those ineffable states within psychosis or non-normative consciousness.
Awesome.
And then right now, like I'm also doing like a lot of workshops with the Canadian Mental Health Association with like poetry and writing. So looking at how like community and creative writing and mental health all kind of combine together.
Awesome. Do you maybe want to plug those a little bit? Do you know, like, are there more coming up, or?
Well, like the workshops themselves, I think they're for the clients at the Canadian Mental Health Association. So you would have to be a part of that to get involved in that. But I think I might be helping also with the workshops that Nigel Meltcalf is also wanting to put on too. Cool. So I don't know. I'm always looking to kind of get involved in different ways I can. But yeah.
Sweet. Okay, so now that we got the interesting stuff out of the way, we're gonna get to some of the more hard-hitting questions. So, just be ready to bare your general soul on TV.
Like I haven't already done that.
Okay, so actually I'm just gonna choose one that I really think is just gonna blow things wide open. Okay, you ready for this one?
Okay.
If you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be? I know, just take a second. Just let it.
There's a lot of really good trees, and there's definitely like really important ones within mythology, like the world tree in Norse mythology. But I don't know if I want to be so ambitious.
Right.
But I don't know. And then like the poem I wrote for the death and grieving one had the white beam in it, and that's like a kind of an interesting tree too.
What kind of tree is that?
Like the white beam tree. I think it's from Scotland. I think it's like maybe like more of like a shrub tree or whatever. Right. But it was kind of interesting.
I was thinking, for me personally, I was thinking about this question a lot today. I think I would be like the Christmas tree from Charlie Brown.
Oh.
Just like bring people joy, but maybe I like don't have a lot of needles and stuff. I don't know. Okay, Luke, thanks for joining us today. Is there anywhere else we can find your work? Maybe a website or?
Yes, I do have a website that I'm working on. I'm
Awesome.
hoping to get more blog posts. So it's basically my first name, Luke, Luke, hyphen Kernan, KERNAN.com.
Awesome.
So basically, my first name hyphen last name.com.
Great. All right. Well, thanks for joining us today, everyone in the studio audience, everyone back at home. You can find more of Luke's work actually on our YouTube channel, as well as inspiredwordcafe.com. Have a great night.